coastal wind howled against the jagged cliffs of Maine as the beacon of Crescent Point Lighthouse flickered through wisps of thick, rolling fog. Perched on the farthest outcrop, the lighthouse had braved Atlantic storms for over a century, just as Thomas Caldwell had braved life's tempests for 62 years. Hands rough as barnacles, beard flecked with salt and age, Thomas was as much a fixture of the coast as the lighthouse itself. Many in town said the sea had shaped him, stoic, uncomplaining, patient as tide and stone. This night, however, felt uneasy. The ocean heaved and clawed at the rocks with unusual violence. The air, sharp with brine, pressed through the walls, rattling lampshades. Thomas stood on the outer deck, gripping the iron railing, lantern swinging from his wrist. He was not a man inclined to superstition, but the Atlantic's mood tonight told stories he could almost believe. A faint, desperate cry cut through the storm, a sound nearly stolen by the wind. Thomas's heart quickened. Someone was lost out there, needing more than the lighthouse's pale light. He turned, snatched his coat, and hurried from the keeper's quarters. His boots thundered down rain-slicked iron stairs across the slick rock trail toward the shore. Every keeper, he thought, owed a debt to the sea, for the ones it took and the rare ones it gave back. By dawn, the storm's fury lingered. Through a haze of sleep and coffee, Thomas followed his careful rituals. He cleaned the lamps, trimmed the wicks, and filled the oil reservoir. Each gesture was as familiar as his own breath, a routine passed down from his grandfather, who had manned this very tower through world wars and hurricanes. People in Bar Harbor said Thomas loved solitude, but solitude was simply the shape his longing had taken after his wife, Eleanor, died 5 years before. Their laughter had once filled the high stone walls. Now only echoes remained. He was grateful for every letter from his sister Margaret, and for the rare, friendly waves from fishermen on the wharf below. Still, loneliness pressed heavier during the storms. Thomas's only company, besides the gulls and the ever-present wind, was the lighthouse cat, Missy, a scrawny calico who slept by the boiler and hunted mice in the storeroom. The isolation suited Thomas. He understood the tides, the moods of wind and water, and the language of passing ships that blinked greetings in distant Morse. Most days, his world was measured in chores, tides, and the play of sunlight on restless waves. But sometimes, in the small hours, he listened for another voice, in dreams or in the lull between distant foghorns. The storm that night had breached more than the coastline. At first light, as Thomas combed the pebble-strewn beach for flotsam, he spotted something tangled in the seaweed, the broken hull of a small sailboat, mast splintered and sail shredded by the gale. Someone moved nearby. Through the rain and spray, Thomas saw a young woman, face pale against a curtain of soaked black hair, clutching driftwood as the surf battered her legs. He rushed to her, heart thumping. "It's all right. I've got you," he called, though the wind nearly drowned his voice. When her legs buckled, Thomas caught her, lifting her from the stony ledge and carrying her through salt water and foam toward the safety of the lighthouse. Inside, he lay her before the kitchen fire, wrapping her in blankets, chafing cold from her hands and feet. She was shivering, half-conscious, as he brewed tea and muttered reassurance. Hours passed as the storm raged outside. The woman, Isabel Montoya, offered only fragments. Her name whispered thanks, a haunted look whenever thunder cracked. Thomas let her rest, bringing broth and dry clothes, tending wounds with the gentle, practiced hands of a man who knew the price of waiting too long for help. Missy the cat watched closely, a silent guardian in the flicker of lantern light. Daylight crept slowly back to the coast. Isabel slept much of the day, fitful and restless, trembling at dreamt terrors. Thomas called the harbor master with the island phone, reported the wreck. A search was launched, but for now, Isabel was safe under the lighthouse's sturdy eaves. Days stretched into a tentative routine. Thomas made oatmeal, fried eggs, and taught Isabel how to tend the lamp's gear and polish the Fresnel lens so the beam cut a clean path through the fog. Isabel, still wary of strangers, warmed slowly to the rituals. She swept the stairwells, repaired torn linen, and listened quietly as Thomas told stories of past storms, shipwrecks, and lighthouse superstitions. It was weeks before she confided in him. "My father taught me to sail in Baja," she said one dusk, staring out at whales spouting in the bay. "I thought I could outrun everything, my troubles, my past. I thought the wind would take me somewhere new." Her voice faltered. "But I never planned to survive a storm like that." Thomas nodded. No one plans the kind of storm that changes everything. There was a gentleness in him she'd not expected, a dignity forged from loss. He never pried. He knew the healing power of patience, the grace in silent company. Together, they baked bread and fixed the old shed, sharing meals in near silence, interrupted only by the cries of gulls or a snatch of scratchy jazz from the radio. Isabel started to laugh again, quietly. Missy curled on her lap. The lighthouse felt less cavernous, less haunted. Yet heartache lingered beneath the surface. Isabel woke sometimes in panic, calling out names Thomas didn't recognize. One rainy night after supper, she broke down, confessing what Thomas had suspected all along. "I lost my family in the tsunami down south, all of them, and I kept running. From the grief, from the reminders." Her hands shook, tears spilling onto the rough pine table. "I ended up alone on the water, hoping for something. I think I expected the sea to take me too." Thomas reached across the table, squeezing her hand. "I lost my Eleanor to illness. For a long time, every sound in this place hurt. Grief swallows people, but I learned. It's not the sea that takes us in the end. It's whether we can find light again, even when we think we're lost for good." He squeezed her hand. "You survived for a reason, Isabel. Maybe the light brought you home." That night, for the first time, Isabel fell asleep without nightmares. When she awoke, the sun was rising golden over the bay. She listened to the song of the lighthouse bell with something close to hope. Spring came early, bringing unexpected visitors. A pair of strangers, one with a clipboard, the other sullen and red-eyed, arrived by boat, asking urgent questions about a missing person and a shipwreck investigation. Isabel watched from the tower, fear flickering across her face. The younger stranger, it turned out, was an old friend of Isabel's family, searching for news. Thomas protected her privacy fiercely, but made no secret of her presence. After careful questioning and a heartfelt conversation with the harbor master, it was agreed that Isabel had come ashore alone, with no crime, no fault, save for surviving. Later, Thomas and Isabel stood side by side on the lantern gallery, watching the world below, breathing in the salty air. "You're safe here," Thomas finally told her. "No one will take that from you, not the ocean and not the storms." As the ever-brighter days followed, Isabel found joy in new routines. Thomas gave her a battered old guitar. In the golden hours before dusk, she strummed Spanish lullabies as Thomas fed Missy or mended nets. Isabel learned how to calibrate the lantern's clockwork, sounding the foghorn before every sunrise and sunset. She painted a mural in the stairwell, blues and ambers swirling like the tides. One evening, a fishing trawler lost power offshore. Thomas and Isabel flashed the code for danger with the lamp, guiding the crew safely past Devil's Pinnacle toward harbor. When the captain brought fresh lobster as thanks, Isabel and Thomas feasted, sharing laughter that spilled through stone walls. She wrote a letter to her uncle in California, the first she'd sent in years. Within weeks, a reply arrived. Forgiveness, family, a chance to begin again. Their lives approached a soft, quiet equilibrium. Thomas's sister visited, bringing cookies and gentle conversation. Isabel found a place in the town chorus, her voice lifting in unfamiliar hymns. She grew roses in the keeper's garden. They celebrated each small milestone, a clear night without dreams, a meal shared in companionable silence, a sunrise greeted in laughter. The lighthouse was never meant to hold anyone forever, and as summer faded, Isabel knew it was nearly time to move on. One star-strewn evening, she stood at the edge of the world, watching a ship's light blink across miles of water. "Thank you," she whispered to Thomas, "for the shelter, for letting me stay lost just long enough to find my way again." Thomas smiled softly, tears glinting in his eyes. "Find your shore, Isabel, but when the storms come, you'll know where the light is." One bright morning, she boarded the harbor ferry, guitar slung on her back, waving goodbye as Thomas and Missy watched from the gallery. The lighthouse's beam swept the water one last time, guiding her journey as surely as it had guided Thomas's so many times before. Autumn returned. The sea grew restless as always, but Thomas found a new steadiness. The echoes of laughter lingered longer. He wrote postcards to Isabel, now living with family, her days filled with music and sunlight. One evening, Thomas tended the lamp as the first winter storm rolled in. Alone, he gazed across the turbulent water and smiled, feeling a quiet pride that the light and the keeper behind it had carried another soul to safety. At the lighthouse, solitude no longer felt like exile. It held the comfort of duty fulfilled, of hope renewed, of connection born from tempest and loss. Sometimes, the bravest thing is to answer the call of a storm, not as a hero, but as a witness to resilience. At Crescent Point, the beam still cuts through the fog, and somewhere, far away, a heart remembers the keeper who showed her the way home. This story is a work of fiction, inspired by the quiet courage and kindness found in everyday guardians of the coast.